What's up, guys? Welcome to the Saturday show. Of course, on Saturdays, I like to go back through the week of Newswave, see what you guys had to say about the different topics that we talked about each and every week. And I looked back through the week, and I realized there wasn't like a ton of like big news that took place. A lot of smaller things, and probably the biggest thing was that rumor about Scarlet Cloud, which we did a video on, and that was a lot of fun to take a look at that. But we will be discussing this past week, including that in the Spawncast later on tonight, including the Pokemon controversy. It seems to be really all over the place right now. And now we're also going to go over that today, since there were some comments for that, and that was probably the most commented video this week. There were a lot of comments with that, as I kind of expected when I was putting that video together. I figured there's going to be a lot of opinions flying around for this. So I picked out a few comments from there, and we'll see what you guys had to say. First, though, we'll go over some quick news. Hori did announce that those D-pad Joy-Con controllers, the ones that are missing a lot of features but do give you that true D-pad, is coming over to the Western audience. And IGN, Philip, actually, old Spawncast member, did a full unboxing on IGN, and it looks like there are going to be two different versions. There's going to be one that's Zelda-themed and one that is Mario-themed. So Nintendo, I guess, got together with them and said, hey, let's do this, let's bring it over, and we'll slap some Nintendo branding on it so it's a little easier to sell. But, of course, it's missing a lot of features. They are selling it for $25, so it is a more budget-oriented model with the D-pad. Just keep in mind, it does drain the battery. I will be picking up at least one of the two so I can open it up, take a look, and see what's going on there. That should be arriving in stores sometime this September. No exact date as of this recording, but I'm sure we'll find out as we get closer to the month when it comes out. And with that out of the way, let's start with Monday. We went over the big Pokemon controversy that is currently surrounding the new Pokemon Let's Go games. Since their introduction, these games have been polarizing in the Pokemon community, with some excited and others downright frustrated. White Ink says, I really don't understand the whole making Pokemon easier and more accessible thing. Pokemon was already wicked easy and accessible as is. That's always been a complaint by critics of the series. Yeah, Pokemon has been easy. Now, according to the translations and everything, it seemed like Mitsuda was more so talking about the capturing mechanic of Pokemon. See, Pokemon Go is much easier when it comes to capturing Pokemon, right? We all know this, we all understand this. He's basically explained that. He wants it to be more like, in this case, capturing bugs with a net rather than a more, I guess, fishing experience. By that, they mean like you have to obviously let some line out, pull the line in, and kind of fight with the fish when you're trying to catch them, except in this case, you're basically just throwing the ball like Pokemon Go. And that's what they want. This whole game is geared around, the whole series, this new series, the Let's Go series, because I'm telling you guys, I think it's a series. I don't think this is going to be the last one of these games. I think it's going to be a continuing thing. It's to get the Pokemon Go community to actually come over to the Switch, because if they can get even 1% of that 800 million to come over, that's 8 million systems that they would sell, and then games that they would sell just like that. So they are banking on that and hoping, and it seems like they had to tell us about next year's Pokemon series, the 2019 Pokemon, that's going to be more so in line with what hardcore Pokemon fans want, so that everyone could at least have something to look forward to. But the accessible thing is interesting. I think this is more so for people who like the Pokemon Go mechanic, and trust me, there are a lot of people like that, where you just kind of, flick the ball, or you throw it with the new accessory they're going to come out with, or the co-op mode with capturing and everything. They just don't want it to be, I guess, as similar to the one that we're used to now. They want it to be more so, hey, you do Pokemon Go? Well, check it out. It's the same thing here. You just throw the ball. And yeah, that part has seemingly frustrated or even angered some of the veteran players from Pokemon at this point. Atsuko Kaguri says, I don't want Let's Go affecting the core games. If the worst happens, well, at least I had fun with the series before they kicked me out. This is by far the biggest fear, the biggest concern by the Pokemon community, just for those Let's Go games existing. They are worried that the Let's Go series will do better. It will become the big pull, if you will, for the audience. And then that's what they're going to go to. They're going to default to the Let's Go series, and it could possibly invade their core series. And I will tell you, I don't think that's going to happen. Even if the Let's Go series sells extremely well, I think they're going to keep them separated, to be honest. And it would make sense for them to do so. I mean, think about it. They could then sell a Let's Go game one year, and then the following year they have the hardcore game that comes out, the one for veterans, the hardcore experience, and then they go back to Let's Go the next year, and that gives them an extra year to work on the core Pokemon series, the core RPG Pokemon series, and I think that would actually suit them well because then you have 2 different teams that get an extra year. It's almost the Call of Duty effect, if you will. You have 3 different studios, and each studio actually has roughly 3 years to work on their Call of Duty game, despite a Call of Duty game coming out each year. It makes sense for the Pokemon, the Pokemon company to do this along with Game Freak, because then they have more time. I honestly don't think that Pokemon Core RPG that's coming out in 2019 would have been ready this year anyway. So it's either this or nothing. So I don't think it's going to affect the series. If you're worried about that, I wouldn't be too concerned until it actually happens, but I don't think it will. I think they'll keep them separated. I think we'll get a Let's Go series one year, and then the next year we'll get the veteran hardcore RPG series, and then they'll kind of offset like that. Every other year you'll get your hardcore Pokemon RPG, and then maybe you'll get DLC and whatever extra stuff throughout the years and everything. But that's probably what's going to happen. We will keep an eye on it though, because of course sales will dictate a lot. And we'll see which one. I'm actually very curious now which one sells better, the Let's Go series or the RPG mainline hardcore series. It's going to be very interesting. Tuesday, we went over Nintendo having a Game Boy Advanced emulator removed from GitHub, which is leading some to speculate if all of this recent legal action from Nintendo against ROMs could be leading to something. Jay Lebrecht says they are going to release a GBA Classic Mini, or just call it GB Classic, and it'll have GB through GBA Classic games. I like the idea of this. I did a video a while ago that was talking about the possibility of a Game Boy Classic, but not necessarily making it a handheld system. As weird as that sounds, I know some people are like, oh, the Game Boy's supposed to be handheld. Yes, but they could easily take what is powering the Super Nintendo system now, the Mini or the NES Classic and Mini and everything, and they could turn that hardware around and have it emulate Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advanced fairly easily. That would be able to do it, and they could literally just recase it and make it maybe look like the Super Game Boy or something, I don't know, but it wouldn't necessarily have to be a system that comes with a screen, because when you get to that, it starts getting a bit more expensive, and at that point, you can play it on your TV. I think that would be kind of a novelty thing, a really cool thing to have, and if you slap Pokemon on there, and then, you put some of the Metroid games on there, some of the Mario games, they have a long list. Put Golden Sun on there, you can put all kinds of stuff on there, and I would buy it for, plug in my TV, adding it to the collection of my classic systems at this point. But I know some people would probably want a handheld one too, but maybe you could even do a hybrid. I don't know. It seems weird for them to release another handheld like that when you could just have it in their Classic Mini. It's very easy to turn around with the same board and everything. But I don't think they're doing that. I think the next one they would do is the Nintendo 64 Classic. Game Boy games, though, could absolutely go to the Switch's subscription virtual console service. It makes sense because it was around the same time, obviously, the NES games, which is what they're doing now. And that was the first thing in the line of Game Boy games. They could easily take Game Boy games and kind of put it as part of that subscription service, because we only know about so many of the 20 games or so that are supposed to show up, and we're getting pretty close to September, so I assume we're going to get something revealed soon in the coming weeks about what else is part of this online subscription service. I think Game Boy games is part of it. Wednesday, we talked about a situation where people were trying to hack their Switch systems, and instead of buying the software from Team Executor, they decided to pirate the software, which backfired on them when that pirated software bricked their systems. The entire situation was picked up by a lot of websites and was largely viewed as a dose of karma. GamerGuy78 says, always run the risk of bricking when you hack and homebrew. The best time for that stuff is in the later years of the console when the companies don't care as much. This I can agree with. Like the PSP. If you buy a PSP now, yeah, you might as well hack the thing. Seriously, Sony doesn't care about the PSP really much anymore. And that's actually a great system to pick up, modify, and it's just an awesome system at that point. The Vita's kind of there as well, kind of now. I mean, you can still technically do a lot with the Vita through Sony's official means, but they are discontinuing that thing. I think the writing's on the wall. They're going to kick it out of PlayStation Plus, I think, next year, when later on in the year. The PS3 as well, but the Vita is probably next up next to the PSP, because that homebrewing scene has really taken off. But the PSP, man, that thing was awesome to modify. So yeah, I think it's fine after you get to a certain point and the device becomes considered legacy. At that point, it's, go for it. But if they're still trying to make money from it and sell games consistently, and you modify it, you hack it, and then you're loading backed up games that aren't yours, yeah, that's kind of an issue. And I don't mind if people are trying to modify their systems for homebrew and stuff, but when you start trying to pirate games that companies rely on selling to pay their developers and fund new projects, that kind of obviously stagnates the entire industry then if you're doing that. So I don't mind if it's legacy, but if it's current, yeah, it's kind of an issue. Thursday, we saw the updated Media Create charts that showed a large drop-off for Octopath Traveler, which fell 80% amid stock issues that had Square Enix taking to Twitter to apologize for the game being hard to find in Japan. Messiah says, why don't people just download it? It doesn't take up that much memory compared to everything else. I think this game, because it touches on like the nostalgia bone, I think a lot of people just want to own it, right? I mean, it's a cool piece for the collection because it is like an old school style RPG. It's pretty neat to have it on a cartridge, you know, that's kind of neat. And I think that's the big thing. Also in Japan, they do generally buy physically a lot more than they do download digitally. And the other thing is we really can't track eShop sales at all. Like we have to rely on Nintendo or Square to tell us those sales for the most part, and we probably will eventually figure out sales for something like Octopath Traveler eventually. I don't think Nintendo's going to tell us about it. I think it would have to be Square that tells us about it. But I do know the game's not very large, right? It's a fairly small game. I think it's like 2 or 3 gigabytes or something. I have to double check because I do have it on cartridge, but I know it's not like a massive game, right, in terms of file size. So I do think a lot of people did download it, but I can tell you now, a lot of people really want this game physically just for the collector's sake, the nostalgia's sake, and it is a shame that Square dropped the ball on it and just didn't provide enough stock, but it does show that it kind of blew past their expectations because it's sold out everywhere and they have to restock sometime in August, I guess. Finally, on Friday, we talked about the Hori D-pad JoyCon controller that released in Japan. The controller appears to have an issue with draining the battery even in sleep mode as long as it is attached. Forza 7 is also removing their loot boxes, and no form of loot boxes will be in the upcoming Forza Horizon 4, showing that the craze of these loot boxes could be coming to an end in gaming. Alkretz says, the only reason indie games are so popular on the Switch is because there aren't that many good console games on this system. Gamers such as myself don't have many other options than to buy indies to keep ourselves entertained while we wait for good games. So that's actually a very interesting opinion considering we just had Octopath come out that is a tremendously good game. There are good games on the Switch. I don't really understand that mentality. There are also a lot of smaller games coming to the system constantly. The big reason I think indie games sell well on the Switch, outside of the fact that it's a portable system and people do generally gravitate to indie games on these portable systems, I do think it has a lot to do with the Virtual Console not being present as a traditional Virtual Console, because if you consider that usually costs $8, $9, $10, that's generally the price of a lot of indie games. Sure, some are like 15 or 20, but the fact that there's no Virtual Console there, sapping up a lot of money, and it really, really would, that's helping indie games a lot. Seriously, that's why I think indie games feel like they have a fighting chance here, whereas they haven't before in Nintendo's past with different systems, right? They really, the Virtual Console just cleaned up. And I know a lot of people want the Virtual Console in its traditional form, but Nintendo doesn't really want to do that anymore. And honestly, I think indie developers are excited that they're not doing that at this point. I really do. They feel like they have a fighting chance, but there are a lot of games to play on the Switch. I've never understood the mentality. Like I said, we have, last year, Game of the Year was on the Switch. There were 2 games, Mario Odyssey and Zelda, both of which are tremendous games, and they continue to release some pretty good games. A lot of them are from the Wii U. So if you had a Wii U, I get why you might be looking, especially at the beginning of this year, and saying, there's really not much there I want to play. But we are going to get towards the end of the year. We'll have Pokemon Let's Go for the people who want to play it. Obviously, I know there's a divided fan base there. And then we'll also have Smash and Mario Party. There's a few other games that still have not been announced. I don't know what's going on here with Nintendo, because they're doing this thing where they're going to announce a game and it's going to come out a month later. So they need to get this direct going soon, because I know of at least 2 games that they are going to be announcing this year that they have not done so yet. So we'll see. We'll see what happens here, but don't be surprised if a few games show up that you want that aren't announced yet for this year. And guys, that's going to do it for our Saturday show today. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like button. It really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything talked about today, whether it's the Pokemon controversy, the Hori D-pad, loot boxes being pulled out, the GBA emulators being ripped down with ROMs. Let me know about all that stuff, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you later on tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern Time for Spawncast. We'll see you then.